What do I mean when I say that Japan isn't a safe country? So amongst tourists, Japan has a reputation for feeling very safe. And yeah, in comparison to living here in the UK or living in America or other countries, Japan does feel a lot safer. Walking around at night in Japan does feel intrinsically more comfortable than it does in the UK. I don't have the same worries, and so far I haven't had the same experiences as I'd have over here. But I think a lot of people confuse feeling safe with being safe. Because just like anywhere, and as I've talked about before, Japan has its own issues when it comes to women's safety and general safety. For example, on peak services and during peak times, there are women-only carriages in order to avoid women being touched without their permission by strangers on packed trains. In Japan, 1 in 2 women have experienced some form of SA. Japan does have laws against CSAM material, but it doesn't have laws about animated CSAM material. So with the real material, you can get about a year or so in prison, if not a $1,000 fine, which is insane. But the animated material won't do anything. If you get caught with that, you're technically allowed to have it within Japan. And another thing that I think a lot of tourists especially forget about Japan is that Japanese police aren't going to be on your side with a lot of stuff. If you have somebody harassing you in public, the most that you can do is draw attention to it by shouting and making a scene. But if you try and fight them, if you try and get physical with this person, you can really get into trouble as a foreigner in Japan. Not to mention that although you might still get a couple of good Samaritans here and there, people in Japan will typically not speak up on your behalf either. And so again, if you do experience a man harassing you, somebody following you, it's quite difficult as a foreigner to not only manage the language barrier between you and a police officer, but also to get them to take you seriously enough to do anything about it. I have seen so many horror stories online, through social media, and also through friends who live there and study there about instances where they've been bothered, harassed, followed, and nothing's happened. And I myself have also experienced men trying to proposition me, approach me, and making me uncomfy. So when I say that Japan is not a safe country, I'm not saying that it's any worse or more terrible than any other country. I'm not saying that the UK is somehow better. What I'm saying is that you can't suddenly put your survival instincts to one side because you're on a lovely holiday to Japan. No, you still have to be sensible. Unfortunately, typically speaking, being a woman anywhere in the world means that unfortunately you're gonna have to contend with creeps, and Japan is no exception.